This is a little gathering of Legion Fan Club. We've been around 2019, and we occasionally get together and kind of chit-chat about things. Today, we wanted to look over a very special issue of Legion of Superheroes back in the 1980s during the fabulous Baxter era. And, we want to get that going. But first, why doesn't everybody introduce themselves? I'll say I am Donnell, and 70-year-old coot that has been reading Legion since I was a wee lad, and they would, be featured in different things. And that was a long time ago, back in the mid-'60s. Who else wants to introduce themselves here?
I can go next. So I go by the name Drake Burroughs with all the stuff that I'm writing. So I almost said my son's name. And to show you how much of a Legion fan I am, I actually named my son after Wildfire. So my name is Jay McKiernan. Wow. I've been writing a column about the Legion for the last year or so. I started out on Reddit, moved over to my own blog site, and I've just been kind of rolling through and doing reviews because I've basically been reading the Legion for as long as I can remember. So when I got into comics, the Legion was the first one. I got in very early 80s. So so the height of the Levitz Giffen run. So and just kind of kept going for probably a decade. Got back into it a few years ago and just said I'm going to start writing, and that's what I've been doing.
Hi, I'm jihaehae. I just graduated college a couple years ago. Yeah. So I guess I'm a bit of a spring chicken here, but I first got into the Legion as a child watching the animated series. And I only got into the comics like during the pandemic. But I got very obsessed, and I've read almost everything now. So I'm excited to be in the club and talk more about it.
Thanks.
So do you folks have a copy of this in front of you by chance?
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, good. So let's start with talking about this cover. We're looking at issue 10 of Legion of Superheroes, May 1985. I'm real sure this was a Baxter, glossy, heavy paper, gorgeous back at the time. A lot of fun to buy these. There was another thing called Tales of the Legion around the same time that was printed in traditional way. This was a little more expensive back then. $1.25 was kind of a crazy price at this year. So everyone's still here?
Yeah, no,
yes.
just
I think Jimbo.
Oh, is somebody else joined?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right, so we're looking at the cover of issue 10. And again, this was Steve Lytle. Just tell me in general your thoughts on him as an artist or this cover. One of your favorites? Horrible cover? What do you think?
I'll let the artist go first.
Oh. I mean, I'm usually not too opinionated about like the covers because it is kind of confusing at first, I think, with Wildfire kind of like his feet disappearing into this dude's face. I mean, it's definitely cool. But and it says vote there on the side in interlac, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it does.
Interlac's not so great.
I lost my interlac skills a little while ago. I used to be much better at it, and I have to stare far too long. I agree with you. I don't think this is one of his best covers. I think it's just too busy. I'd like it to be a little bit simpler, but having said that, a bad Steve Lytle cover is still better than I'm nitpicking at this point just because I know he's capable of a lot more, and I've seen better stuff from him. But it wouldn't be my first choice of something to say. This is what Steve Lytle can do.
Jimbo, can you hear us okay?
Loud and clear. Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Hey.
welcome to the discussion of issue 10. We're starting at the cover. I tried to share a screen. For some reason, it cut off my mic whenever I would do it. Very sad moment. But we all have it open anyway on our various apps. Did you have any thoughts on the, I don't know if you have it available right there where you are, but if you do you have any thoughts on the Steve Lytle cover for issue 10, May 1985?
Well, I appreciate you all talking through it, because I was trying to I was getting the issue pulled up on the app while we were here talking. So the you know what, you're gonna laugh. The funny thing that jumped out at me is the cruiser, because it's the cruiser that basically the cruiser design that was basically in use until about the year 2000. When when they switched off and ended the V4 run, and then did the whole Legion Lost, the Legion thing, and they kind of switched off the spaceship designs. It came back a couple of times, but this design of the spaceship was one of the things that has been around for, this was around for a good 15 years.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Steve Lytle hadn't done this for very long. He was fairly new, as I understand it, with illustrating, and somehow he landed this sweet gig of Legion like this. I guess because they were doing two separate runs right at the same time. Perhaps as part of the way he got in. Overall, I do like the basic lines of it. His ability to draw. I think it's a nice look for Legion overall. As you're saying, there's other covers that are much better that he does later. Although he doesn't have that long of a run with this, really. He does more just covers after several issues of this. And I don't think you guys are, I hate to be morbid. He passed away back in 2021. COVID related. Yeah, he was, I think, early 60s, I believe. Yeah, kind of.
Oh, that's
Kind of
young.
like our Kevin Oyer we were talking about, Super Legion fan that passed away a year or so ago from heart stuff. It's tough to see in the 60s, right? But anyway, but again, what a contribution to this canon, and definitely a good artist. And there's a couple like this that I always enjoy when they come on. So from there, of course, I did have Drake those two questions, which of course I'm not even looking at right now to refer to. And, I mentioned that we might want to do this. But in general, Election Day, what a interesting theme, right? Considering what we're going through as a country now. And here, a very different way of coming up with presidential candidates. What did you think of the method they used to come up with them? Anybody?
Well, I mean, I guess
Everybody's being
certainly
polite and letting somebody else speak. So, all right, no, please, Gigi, go.
Okay. I thought the idea of like having a computer like algorithm or something choose the candidates is kind of I mean, it's definitely interesting, and assuming you have a perfect algorithm, which is, obviously that would be impossible in real life, but I mean, since it's a story, I mean, it seemed to work out for them pretty well last time with Colossal Boy's mother, and they kind of bring up this interesting idea that someone who doesn't want the power would be the best person to yield it, and I think that that's an interesting thing that reflects a lot on real life, but unfortunately not very applicable. But that's what I thought.
Yeah, I would agree. That's actually the one thing that popped into my head as well, just because it's or just more thinking of the reverse, right? Those that seek it are the ones that should be prevented from ever getting near it. And this being an interesting way to sidestep that particular problem. But of course, that one could say that could never do it if it's you never know if it's if the algorithm is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, one of the things that really stood out is the one-day campaign. Like, as I'm not American, so my elections are very, very different from what you guys are going. I'm assuming you three are all American. I apologize if I'm wrong. So we don't have these. Like, I'm up in Canada. We don't have these 8 months, or I mean, actually, I should say just never-ending campaigning.
Yeah.
But ours is bad enough. And when it was like, you get your nominees in the morning and the election is at night, and you kind of get everything you need to know, I was like, that's awesome, because I don't need to see political ads all day. It's kind of funny with this issue. When I was in university, I was taking a political science course, and they asked us to write about like a fantasy political system to introduce. And I actually took this election, this issue, and I said, I'm going to write this. And so I wrote it out as like, yeah, so we do this in the world. I have never been so attacked by a classroom of students in my life.
Wow.
All of my classmates were just like, that's the dumbest idea ever. Oh my God, this is horrible. And I'm looking at them going like, well, why not? Like, you don't want to, as we said, like, you don't want a politician who wants the job. You want the person who's best for the job, right?
Right.
And if you can accept the idea of, the algorithm's going to work, and since it's the 30th century, we kind of go in with that assumption, then yeah, we're getting theoretically the three best candidates. I mean, I would argue that the person who won probably wasn't one of the three best candidates, and you could make the case just at the end of the issue that the algorithm didn't work, but it's a good idea.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? This is, and from the American perspective anyway, the idea of the whole idea of these people being representatives or senators or whatever, that was never designed to be a full-time gig, right? It was the deal was that these were people that were in this case of the Senate, they were like farm owners or unfortunately plantation owners, but the representatives were printers and stuff that you wouldn't be doing this all the time. But now the way the job is flipped is that if you're not actually in the halls of the Congress, you're raising money to stay in Congress, right? And so, not to get too down a political path, but it's gotten the way we have it today, it's gotten a lot farther away from where it was meant to be, I think.
Oh yeah. If we wanted to go down the path of talking about how the political systems work, that could be another 5 hours of conversation. And it's I don't think anybody wants to do that. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I think it's one of those things where the comic presents sort of this idyllic idea of like, hey, like, wouldn't this be awesome? And I'm sure even in 1985, I wouldn't be surprised if Levitz has seen enough crazy American elections that he's just like, okay, what's a better idea? Like, what's something that would work? And I don't even think Levitz came up with that idea. I think it was Conway. Was that how Marta Ellen got elected? Did they do the same idea, or did Levitz come up with this?
I want to say that when Jim's mom was elected, it was an algorithm based scenario.
That's what it was. She didn't want it either. She was a teacher or something, I think.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, she was a university professor. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, what I found interesting with this was that this idea of having a computer algorithm come up with candidates, not actually elect them, the candidates, does sound like some ideas that are bouncing around now in the United States of having some sort of how we do a draft for the Army or something, doing something similar for at least certain levels of government, like maybe House of Representatives, where somebody within, and this will never happen, of course, but the idea of having certain age limit and again by qualification, perhaps, right? Not just anybody should be in there doing this kind of administrative work, right? That's a certain talent level. You need certain skill sets, but have them just say, hey, you're doing this for 2 years. It's your commitment to the country, just like serving in the Army, and thank you for your service. And of course, that'll never happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What I thought was
but use it up.
I was going to say, like, of the three candidates that they picked in this comic, like, I thought the most interesting one was the Chinese woman, because here's a university student who's like, how did I get picked? Like, what's going on? And ironically enough, she probably would have ended up being the best choice just on the limited information that we got, because she was the one who probably wanted it the least and the one who was the most open. I think it would have been, I think that would have been like, it's kind of funny, and we'll talk about this later, like where this issue leads and how Levitz is planting seeds for something that isn't going to come out for another 2 years. But like, I thought that would have been a fascinating, if they had gone with, here's a president who's the same age as the Legion. And
Yeah.
how does that work? And where does that, what they could have played with that, I thought that would have been a fascinating way to go.
Yeah, that's a really cool point, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
also made
and
me think of I know you've commented this as well, right? Where you have the whole, Levitz with his big old board of Post-it notes, trying to track what's going on over, multiple plot lines and everything like that.